Hello. So welcome to another episode in our series leading up to the general election for 2025. It's episode 106 of Teh Tarik with Walid. And today I think it will be fun. It'll be interesting, I think. I will have the leader of the People's Power Party, a veteran politician in Singapore, Mr. Meng Seng. I'll be having him on, and I think there are a lot of issues that we will discuss. Probably there'll be some disagreements, there'll be some debates back and forth between us. So I look forward to this discussion. Okay,
Alright.
Mr. Go. So let's start. Thank you for doing
Okay.
this. So
Thank you for having me, Walid.
no
Yeah.
problem. So I have of course I have a dog in this fight because in a particular manner because I'm a Tampines resident.
Oh,
And
okay.
I grew up in Sime, so I went to school in Tampines. Most of my family members live in Tampines, and most of
Okay.
them are not excited about People's Power Party going there.
Oh, really?
Actually, in fact, I received a lot of comments telling me that I should dissuade you from running in
Okay.
Tampines because they think that multi-cornered fight is not good for them. So what do you say in response to that?
Nobody want to have a multi-corner fight, correct? I don't want to have a multi-corner fight. This is a given, right? Uh, I've led a team in Tampines before, 2011 under NSP, and Tampines is not a good ground. To be very frank, if you look at the data, I'm very a database person, right? Since 1988, when the GRC have been incepted, with the inception of the GRC system, Tampines have been always a fortress. I always say for the PAP, right? PAP have always above 70%. I think only once less than 70%, and that's about it, right? And we even when in 2011 when I decided to go to Tampines instead of Jalan Besar, people thought that I'm crazy because Jalan Besar under NSP contest, it contested both Jalan Besar and Tampines in 2006. Jalan Besar is actually seemed to be a better ground than Tampines. But I was very specific about my core values and my core issues. I don't anyhow whack lah. So it was Mao Tan because he was in charge of a ministry of
National development.
national development, right? So I came into politics because of a few reasons. I was the one who was very hurt by this asset enhancement. Maybe the older generation will say they benefit from that. But when I graduated in 1990s, 95, right, and want to start a family, I suddenly found myself in a situation, all the HDB flats, whether it's BTO, not BTO, back then it's a new flats, right, or the resale was so high compared to our salary, right? And I compared to my parents' time, wow, it was about 10 times difference. So I think my thoughts is unsustainable. And because of a 99-year lease, it is not going to have the promise of asset enhancement forever. And I was proven right after 2011. But nobody actually thinks that it makes sense for me to go with this issue. So I went to Tampines. I even tried to have a debate with Mao Tan, which he siam lah. So it's okay. But with my team in Tampines wasn't the top team, put it in very simple terms. Right? Back then, NSP have two scholars, Hazel Phua, Tony Tan. They did not want to go to Tampines. Right? They chose
Why didn't you send them to? I remember in 2011, I thought
yeah.
Mabao Tan was there for the taking, right?
Yeah.
And Aljunied sent its A team. WP sent its A team to one,
Yes.
but
Yes.
you spread out your A team.
I didn't want to spread out. Walid, for the record, I didn't want to spread out.
I
I
see.
actually tried to persuade them to go to Tampines, and we might just warn, but
Yeah, I
they
think so.
they refuse it. All right. Even people talk about, how about Nicosia? But Nicosia, nobody knows about her until the election, right?
Yeah.
But I talent spotted her. I think she present her very well. She's a natural in terms of political presentation. She's really a natural.
Yeah.
I persuaded her to go to Tampines, but she didn't want because she stayed in Tampines. Very few people know about that. So I said, why not?
Now more people know about it.
so I have no choice, right? But in spite of all this, we've a not so strong team, but we've only one particular policy, that is housing. Okay, a fair housing for all generations. Right, Tampines voters seems to have a maturity to actually swing the votes. I think over 10%, nearly 15%. Although we didn't win, but we performed quite decently. And that was my second best results other than the Arjunit GRC when I was with Workers' Party, right? But NSP branding, so-called the party branding, was not as strong as Workers' Party. We have to admit that, right? But we did have a showing. So if you are me as a politician, you are doing the calculation. If you really want to go into parliament, not just to fill the gap, no, like the last election when nobody want to go to McPherson, I just like, okay, my strong belief is all Singaporeans should have a chance to vote. That's why I went to McPherson, knowing that it's actually not a good ground, right? But this time now I need to win. We will come to that later. If you were me, how would you decide? The decision is very simple. But you always choose the best place which you have a certain affinity or certain recognition, or you recognize the voters can be very reasonable, rational, right? To actually goes to project what we want to project, our core values. Right? Then I will come to my core values. Any political party, small parties especially, even big parties, have to be led by a certain core values. Okay, be it PAP in the early days, right? The core values is very simple. A very pragmatic way to uplift the standard of living for all Singaporeans, to develop the countries, to get jobs for the population, so that people can own a house, own a HDB flat at least. In Chinese, we call to live peacefully, right, and to have a good job. That is actually the fundamental of any nation in building. So their core values are very straightforward. Right? Of course, they will try to manage all the opposition, dissidents, and all that, which I do not like. But with due respect, they have these core values. Now, for me, my core values is very simple. We have progressed from independence since now. So I find there's a gap of governance, like whether it's vaccine mandate or whether it's read out saga, right? Or whether it's a separation of powers. My party is founded on the basis of a separation of 5 powers, not only 3, 5 powers. Right? 5 powers include the selection of civil servants, top civil servants, and scholars, and all that. Right? And of course, power of impeachment, which is CPIB, right? And all that, right? It should be separated from the executive. But that's beside the point. But at this point of time, right, when I look at what the amendments to the Infectious Disease Act.
Okay, so we'll get to the vaccines
we will
in
get
a
to the
while.
vaccine later.
So that's one of the questions I wanted to ask. So,
so
but specifically about the multi-cornered thing, right?
yes.
So If Workers' Party is there, there's very little chance of you winning, right?
But how do you know Workers' Party will be there?
If they are there, if they are there.
If they are there. So Workers' Party have not announced openly they are going to contest there, right? And Workers' Party have is understandable. No, nothing personal, because Workers' Party have done it before. In 2011, you remember, they said they want to expand. They want to train the youngsters, right? They want to go to Jalan Besar, which conveniently was changed. The names changed to Meng right? And my scholars, Hazel and Tony, already announced they want to contest in Jalan Besar. In that so, right? So I didn't want a three-corner fight, really. Right? And especially when the three-corner fight is not done by me, by new incomers the first time. I do not want they spend their first time contest in a three-corner fight. So I told them, let's pull out. Let WP do it. Is that fair? I mean, it's more than fair. Of course, they are not happy about it. But I say, well, it's for the good of both of you. Your first time contest, you should not actually get into this mess. Okay? So they went to Choa Chu Kang, performed decently. 30% is quite decent, right, for first timer back then. Now, after WP go into Jalan Besar, and Jalan Besar became the worst performing GRC for this GRC for the whole campaign within Workers' Party. They actually abandoned it, and they now never go into Jalan Besar anymore, which Meng, which conveniently renamed into Jalan Besar again in 2015. I do not know what happened, but that was what happened. That's the historical perspective. Now, then they want to go to Marine Parade. Of course, NSP, I'm out of NSP. But I look at it, I felt very sad, because both NSP and Workers' Party, I was part of it. I was part of the renewal of Workers' Party. I was part of a new renewal of NSP, and both of them are lockheaded in this Marine Parade and Macpherson. And then in the end, they fought in Macpherson, which the late Chiu Chai Chin lost their deposit, which I felt very sad, really. But after that, in 2020, both of them abandoned Macpherson. And I have to go into Macpherson, because I believe everyone should have a vote as a citizen. It's a right. It's a very important voting right. Never mind if people are speculating I will lose my deposit, which we did not happen, but it's okay. Right? But at this point of time, it's because of two issues, two core values that I think I want to give Singaporeans a clear choice. Someone will ask me, are you giving Singaporeans a choice? Yes, I'm giving the Singaporeans a choice. Right? I'm not just presenting about the daily bread and butter issues. Every opposition parties can do a good job. The cost of living, GST, increase in tax, because it is a real issue that everyone can talk about. But what other people do not want to talk about is a very touchy and very sensitive issue that we will come into this. The vaccine issue, as well as the core values of a nation, how we survive as a nation. It's very back to basic again. To LKY's time, to Go King Sui's time. I'm a fan of Dr. Go King Sui, put it that way. Right? Okay. Even that, he have made certain mistakes during the development period, but I read his white papers as a student. I worship him. Right.
So, the two core issues are vaccines and LGBT, is it? The family unit?
It's actually not LGBT per se. It's actually a pro-family. When when I'm going to release my manifesto, okay, it's actually a policy, population policy,
Okay.
which
I have a question to ask about that, but can I just confirm, because you say you don't like multi-cornered fights. So if
yeah.
WP is contesting, will you step aside?
Then where should I go, Walid? A very fundamental question to you.
So if Singaporeans, so I haven't met people who are excited about three-cornered fights, other than maybe, you know, hardcore PAP supporters or something. But even most people don't want three-cornered fights. So,
Yes,
and
yes.
for them,
Um,
it's not so much about which opposition,
yes,
and
yes.
if the Workers' Party is there, Workers' Party is the more established one. I don't think too many Singaporeans would be fond of have smaller parties. So
Walid, it's very simple.
yeah,
According to your logic,
yeah.
all other parties can close shop.
No. So according to my logic, right, at this point in time, right, I personally don't have a problem with parties contesting. I
Yes,
think voters will sort them out. But
yes.
according to that logic, Workers' Party will not be contesting in all the seats, right? So does
Okay.
it make sense for opposition to coordinate and then contest in the, and if there is already an opposition there, there's no need for you to contest, right? You can do other things. If your
The
issue
only
is
opposition
advocacy,
there,
yeah,
Walid,
yeah,
the only opposition there is actually NSP, not WP.
yeah, correct.
Correct?
The only opposition from 2020, right? WP
Yeah.
has been walking the ground. I've seen them
No,
in
no, no.
Tampines.
NSP have been walking the ground also. NSP, in fact,
Actually, I haven't seen NSP at all throughout the past
have
five
lah.
years.
They, they,
I mean,
they,
I
yeah.
mean, I haven't seen they may be there, but I have
Okay.
seen WP actually in
For
Tampines.
in fact, WP have been walking there ever since I was in WP 2001. But that doesn't mean anything,
True, true. So it's a
right?
hypothetical, right? So
Yeah,
if WP
hypothetical.
contests, will you step
Oh,
aside or will you say I will still contest no matter what?
I well, I will not step aside, right? I think most of the time, opposition parties supporters do not like three-corner fight. Most of them will actually prefer the bigger party.
Okay,
Granted, right?
okay.
Granted. But for a democracy to mature, I mean, as an academic yourself, right? It will come to a point that we must actually look at the party not as a branding, but rather as a substance in core values, in policy options. So at this moment, we most of people think that way, right? Even sometimes I think that way because we are anti-PAP. Is that correct? And most of the time we think that way because we just feel that we just need more opposition in parliament without thinking what this opposition actually stands for.
Right.
Is that going to be healthy for a nation, a young nation to actually progress?
So
That is another fundamental question that
let's say
yeah,
let's say you contest in Tampines or Nisun and there
yeah.
is WP or PSP there, and you do not get back your deposit, would you then admit you would have made a mistake?
It's not a mistake. I would not say it's a mistake. I would respect the choice, the voters were making their choice. It's just that, in another sense, I would say that the democracy that I perceive of a full democracy have not actually matured. That's all,
Hmm. Okay.
right?
So I mean I'll leave it at this. So
Yeah.
I think that if parties are contesting against the bigger opposition parties, WP, SDP, PSP, I think there's a very good chance that the smaller parties will not get back their deposits.
Yes, yes, definitely. A lot of people would think that way. Definitely, I would agree with you.
Okay.
Right,
Right, but
right.
you are comfortable with that because for you, as Arun said, ideological representation is more important than that, than winning.
At this point of time, it's life and death for me.
What do you
Why?
mean, life and death? What do you mean?
Because of the vaccine mandate. If
Okay.
you look at the Infectious Disease Act, right, they can actually basically force the vaccine upon us, and if we do not agree, to take the vaccine will be jailed or fined. It's a matter of life and death.
I
And
mean,
that
you
is
won't
why
go to jail. You won't go to jail, right? If you are not vaccinated
this,
in Singapore.
I can show you the act, right? Infectious Disease Act. You go to section 47. It's called Vaccine Mandate Order. The Director of Health had the power to dictate a class of citizens, a class of people, or anyone to take the vaccine without any clause to say that the vaccine must be safe or whatever it is. It's fully on the discretion of the Director of Health, right? And in section 63 and 65, it says if there's no penalties stated in this act, right? For first, these penalties will apply for the first offense.
Yeah.
Right? You can be fined up to $10,000
Up to $10,000 or
or
imprisonment for
jail
a term
for
not
6
exceeding
months. Yes,
6 months. So,
not.
but that didn't happen for COVID vaccine, right?
Why? Because they did not have a disclaimer. Indemnity.
Right.
So they add in the indemnity and section 65 that says that the Director of Health or anyone who carry out this vaccine mandate in good faith will not be subject to any prosecution. Because to make that judgment, right, the Director of Health must be very, very sure. If not, he can be sued for libel.
So Mr. Go, do you think this is an extremely minority and unpopular view? Most
No,
Singaporeans are very comfortable with vaccines. Most Singaporeans do not take your view. Most Singaporeans actually follow the science, right, on these two
I would say all lives are precious to me.
Okay.
I am for, that's where my core values come from. I'm not anti-vaccine. I'm pro-safe vax. Right? I am for informed consent. What does it mean? You must tell me exactly what are the list of side effects that comes with the vaccine, and let me decide and not force upon me. You cannot force a medical treatment or intervention upon a human being. That's against human rights. Now, to answer your question, is it a lot of people are comfortable with it? If so, you go to the market, you ask all the auntie, uncle, are you going to take another COVID vaccine again? They'll tell you, no more. Why? We have an excess death of 20 to 25%.
Wait. What does that mean? Excess
Excess
death of
death.
25 to 20. What do you mean by that?
Excess death means, okay, actually, maybe you did not follow my Facebook closely.
Yeah.
I have a chart. Actually, I have put up this in our press release against the continuation of vaccination program, and MOH did not reply about this excess death. What does it mean by excess death? Compare from 2018 to 2020, right? The number of deaths on average, you compare to those when vaccination program has started, 2021, right, up to 2023, or even up to 2024, right? There is an excess of 20% to 25% of number of deaths in comparison on average.
Wait. So you're saying since the COVID vaccine, there's been 25% more deaths in the world?
No, in Singapore.
Oh, in Singapore, yeah, in Singapore and throughout the world as well. Oh, in Singapore specifically,
Specifically,
25% more
yes,
deaths,
20 to 25%.
and this is due to any cause. That's what you're saying.
Well, MOH did not have any narrative or any explanation for that. But
And you think this is because of vaccines?
Well, it is not only I think, Walid, because this is not unique in Singapore. It happens in UK, it happens in Australia, it happens in US. Although their SSF is not as high as ours, because we have a very high vaccination rate as
You do
compared
know,
to
Mr. Gop, most scientists disagree with you. Even those who may be against mandates and so on, but the science on this is pretty clear, right? That what you are saying, that there is not enough evidence for it, right? What
No,
you're saying.
Walid. If you want to look for evidence,
Hmm.
there are a lot of evidence that comes out in recent times, but it was not reported in local mainstream medias. And why Robert Kennedy that comes into place in US says that he's going to review the mRNA COVID vaccine, basically because they are actually research, even from the FDA labs, they say the batches of vaccine actually are not consistent. It is very technical. For normal people, is very technical. Basically, he says that there are certain DNA fragments which is will cause unknown issues, right? There is
Okay.
actually technically there's a limit to it, but some of the batches have as high as 400 times more in excess of the limit for this
Okay.
variation. So it's different batches. But having said that, it's okay if you do not believe about the safety aspect,
Yeah.
right? There's another things we call turbo cancer. There's a lot of things, a lot of minor things that goes on. In fact, I was talking to one scientist who are in immunology and molecular science, right? I asked him very simple, right? By the third month, when they roll out the vaccine, we already know the vaccine is ineffective in prevention of transmission and infection. I was
Wait,
saying
wait.
very straight.
So the
Right?
vaccine didn't isn't prevent you from getting it, but it it lowered transmission rates, right? I
No,
think.
no, it is not. Yeah, or else in Singapore, how come most of the people who have vaccinated will get COVID?
Sorry. It didn't lower the transmission rates, but it lowered the effects on you if you got it,
Oh
right?
no,
So
it's not true.
you
It's not
don't think
true.
that's true also?
I
Why is
don't
that the
think.
case?
I think. Okay. I talked to this scientist yesterday, just yesterday, about this. Uh, uh, the logic is this.
May I know which scientist is this?
Huh?
Or
I cannot review. All right, I cannot review to protect him, lah. Huh? The reasoning is exactly what I have said in my earlier 2021 or all those live chat. Is because the virus mutated faster, much faster than I expected. Right? For every 3 months, 20 mutation in the spike protein. And whatever vaccine that you comes out cannot catch up with it. That's why it's totally ineffective to prevent infection and transmission. And he agrees, right? Then I asked him one question. If that is the case, do you think the vaccine mandate or not the mandate, the VDS, the push for the vaccine, even go to the extreme of no job, is actually logical? He said, no, it's not science. It's not scientifically based decision. Why we want a vaccine mandate, Walid? It's not about protecting ourselves, no? It's protecting other people from getting infected, right?
yes.
That is the reason. But if it doesn't prevent infection and transmission, then why is
No, but
absolutely
if it reduces the side effects, if it reduces
no,
the effects,
no. In fact, it is the reverse.
so
They're already
you don't think that is the case. So in spite of the overwhelming studies that I've seen on
no.
this,
There are overwhelming studies that are coming out right now that says that in
what
fact, Pfizer knows it. It listed out 1,000.
which overwhelming study
No,
have
okay.
you
First of
could
all,
you
I go back to Pfizer's document, which is
okay,
not released until they were forced to release.
okay,
When they push out the vaccine, right? They give a document. They have to do a study. They give a document to the FDA in US. It was forced out. It listed 1,291 side effects, and some of them are fatal.
But you
So
know,
who?
our government has never pretended there are no side effects or whatever it is, right?
Yes,
It's
of
just
course.
that
But
overall, it benefited people more than it
you
didn't,
know,
right? I mean,
Walid,
do you accept Professor Paul Tambaya as an authority on this, or
I only look at. I don't look at belief in people. Science is
no?
not belief in people.
But the people is not. They are not
No,
coming up with things, right? The people, they
I
are
believe,
renowned experts, and therefore they have authority on it, right?
Walid, I believe in data, right?
Understood. But so the reason why I brought up Prof. Tambaya, Mr. Go,
Yeah.
is you cannot claim that he's from PAP, right? So you
Yes,
cannot say that, oh, it's the
I
government doing
I
it. But
am
he's
not
an infectious diseases expert. So
okay. I am not at liberty to tell you what Paul Tambaya told me, right? But maybe I should, right? In private, when the mRNA vaccine came out, we agreed there's no long-term safety data. He agreed. He agreed.
yeah, of course, because the
Right?
vaccine was very new. Of
Right?
course, I mean that one you don't need Prof. Tambaya,
Then
right? Everybody agrees with that. Yeah.
then everyone agrees. Both of us agree that it's actually safer to use the old technology, which is the inactivated uh, virus vaccine. Why? Because mRNA technology, actually, it sounds very good. It's actually a wonderful concept. But for the past 35 years, over 30 years, there's not a single medical product that has been proven to be safe, approved by the FDA until the vaccine came out. Do you know that?
Sorry, I didn't because I'm reading this, Prof. Tambaya, because you quoted him, and he actually said there is no correlation
Yes,
between the deaths. Let me just quote.
yes,
There does not appear to be a correlation between high vaccination rates and high excess mortality, right?
yes.
So I tend to believe him when it comes to infectious diseases
That is
because
because he was looking at the data, the world data,
the
right?
data that you cited earlier, right? The
No,
excess
no, no,
death
no, no,
data.
no, no, no. Different data set.
Okay.
Mine is a local data.
Oh
What
yeah,
he
yeah, yeah. This
cited,
is the world data. Correct, correct.
that's the
This is
world
the world
data.
data. Yeah.
I actually knows what he was talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
But the outliers that he has stated, the outliers, we call the outliers, the countries that he stated are actually countries with actually medical facilities are actually much backward. So when we want to compare, we actually have to compare uh, in a more comparable situation. Anyway, this is actually one part of it. Okay, about the harm.
How many COVID deaths do you think there were, and do you think the government covered this up?
No, I'm not. I just to qualify my statement, Walid. I talked to these scientists. Then I said, why are the government or the establishment want to push for the vaccine? He told me something this. If you remember the SARS in 2003,
Yeah.
the fatality rate is actually 20%. That means those who kena, 20%
Yeah.
will die.
Yeah.
Right? Those who survive have a long-term impact on their lungs, on their heart, their brains, and all that. So to the scientists, to the establishment scientists, they have this fear that this SARS-2, that's why it's called SARS number 2, right, will have a certain improvement over the SARS-1.
Wait, what do you mean establishment scientists?
That means
When you
those who are working with the establishment like the FDA, and all that, they are afraid. They are afraid because it's an unknown, right? When the COVID comes in, the virus comes in, it's actually so-called a new coronavirus. So they were afraid that these have certain similar characteristics to the SARS-1 because both are coronavirus. right? With a certain mutation and all that. So they were very afraid that it will create havoc, right, in death or long-term impact, which actually the death rate is actually not as high as we actually witness. In Singapore, it's less than 1%.
Yeah, so wait, why do you talk about FDA? If you are talking about the local ones,
I'm talking about the mindset behind why they want to push for the vaccine mandate or
so
pushing
why
people to.
why does our government, do you think that there were
This
COVID deaths that have been hidden by the government?
I don't think there were COVID deaths hidden by the government.
Okay, okay.
Right? To be fair, I don't think there were any. Okay. I
So what is it in need for the government to be pushing for a
because they
vaccine mandate if it doesn't benefit? What do you think
because because they were afraid that even if you don't die from the infection, you end up like what the SARS number one, right? When those who didn't die have suffered long-term impact. Some are very serious impact as well. You got what I mean? So when we see Lee Hsien Loong going to conference are wearing 2-3 masks, right? In spite of the fact that he got his COVID jab. Why is that so? Because they are afraid that any infection will have long-term impact, right? Which might be true. I'm not saying that it will be false. It might be true because there's something called long COVID, correct? Right. So there's something called long COVID. So it might be true, but how serious it is, nobody knows. So they play safe on the side. They thought that the vaccine could actually reduce long COVID, but the scientist that I talked to, he says that
so
the fight
for
for
you
it.
the government basically act on the side of caution. So they were afraid of this. And
Yes.
this is something you got from one scientist and the data that you've read. One
No,
scientist is
not,
right.
not, not, not on the data. This is the background thinking.
Okay.
They are the thought process.
And it's only one scientist, right, that you've spoken to
Yes.
on this.
I would say if you observe the caution that they put up, 3-4 masks, even after jab, I think they're really afraid
Okay.
of being
So
infected.
so from what I've read,
Right?
and I've tried to read as much as I
Yeah.
could before this interview, and it does
Yeah.
seem that the best scientists in the world all disagree with you, and I disagree as well. Prof. Tambaya as well seems to
Yes.
disagree with you.
But
So I
Walid,
yeah.
there are scientists who are also world renowned who actually agree with me.
Yeah, it's a few. It's a few. I think not the majority, nowhere
All
near
right.
the majority.
And in fact,
There are a few.
in
Okay,
fact,
which
I actually talked to a group of doctors who are afraid to come forward, who have shown concern about this mRNA vaccine. And the
okay,
concern is what? All right.
yeah. What? Okay,
What
so
are the concern? Just now
I
just now I was saying the mRNA technology have not been proven safe, right? Until the COVID vaccine came out. Why is that
so
so?
so
Why is
Mr.
that
Go,
so?
I'll put out my opinion. I think the data doesn't suggest what you're suggesting. It's a lot of wild leaps you are making.
No,
So it's
no.
scientists and but okay. So let's bring this back to politics, right? So
Okay.
you can have a debate with Prof.
Yeah,
Tambaya about the medical
yeah.
aspects, right? But uh, do you think a lot of Singaporeans agree with you?
Agree with me. I think a lot of Singaporeans do not want any jab anymore. Vaccine
No,
is
they don't want any
efficacy.
COVID jab anymore
Yes,
now,
yes.
perhaps. But
And you must
let's
ask
say there
why.
is an outbreak.
No,
There
no,
is an
no,
outbreak.
no. You must ask why. They have lost confidence.
I don't think so. So they lost confidence in the government. There's no data
No,
to
they
suggest
lost
that at all.
confidence in the vaccine. They felt that
Okay.
it's useless. That's number one.
So
And they felt
Mr.
that,
Go, are you familiar with the Edelman Trust Barometer
okay,
Index? The
I'm having a very simple question. I'm a
Singapore
very simple
government, wait,
man.
so this is based on the data, right? The Singapore
Yeah.
government is still amongst the highest
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
trusted in the
Yeah,
world.
correct. It's all right. Whatever survey it is, they have their methodology of doing the survey. But my survey method is very simple. We walk the ground. We just ask the auntie and uncle, how many jab you have? Right? They will tell us. Then I say, oh, do you want to jab again? They're asking you to jab. You say, no, 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 no. I say, why? Why? Oh, a lot of problems. I see my friends here and there. Whether it's true or not, Walid, whether you believe it or not, it doesn't matter. It is basically a loss of trust in the vaccine.
So the loss of trust, I mean, I don't know whether it's a loss of
Right?
trust in the vaccine
And
or it's other thing. But if what you say is right, we should see a corresponding drop of trust in the government. And we just don't see that.
because people don't blame the government.
Then
Why?
who do they blame? If it's
No,
a
no,
mandatory thing, who do they blame if it's not the
they,
government?
they can't blame the government because they understand, right? It's an emergency. Nobody actually knows exactly the truth. Even our expert in Singapore doesn't know whether this mRNA vaccine really works or not. Or
How
really,
many people did you speak to, Mr. Go? You said
huh?
your methodology is speaking to people, right? How
Every
many?
time every time we go down to the ground, we always ask the same question.
And every single one gives you the same
Not
answer.
every single one, definitely not every single one, because vaccine hesitancy is about 70% at the moment, right?
70% of Singaporeans
70%.
do not
70%.
want. Can you explain what do they not want with
That
regard
means
to
if you don't
vaccine?
force them, they'll prefer not to take. Right?
For
In
the
fact,
what? For the fourth jab or fifth jab?
whatever jab the next jab which they are
Oh, so
due
you
for.
mean even if there's a new disease, you think there'll be vaccine
Well,
hesitancy?
I do not know. Seriously, Walid, I do not know. Right? But
Okay,
but most people would not prefer to be forced to jab. And
okay,
that is what we are saying. With vaccination, nobody knows for certain. I don't profess to know that the next pandemic comes in, the next vaccine, whether it's good or not, whether it's safe and effective. Vaccine have to comply with two important things: safe and effective. And
okay.
effectiveness,
So you think that this is something that will sell to Singaporeans, this policy?
no, I'm not selling to Singaporean. It's about good governance.
Okay, but
I
you're trying to
believe,
win an election, right, Mr. Go? So you
yeah,
are selling it to the people, right?
yeah, I'm not going to convince the people whether you believe in the vaccine or not. We must
Okay,
have a good governance of judgment. That's number one, right? And we must have a good judgment made based on safe and effective vaccine. You cannot say that I just let this director of health to decide and he have no liability whatsoever if something went wrong.
okay. So you can see why I have skepticism, right? Because
Yes, yes, definitely.
most scientists don't agree with you, but also I think most Singaporeans don't agree with you, right?
Um, well, I don't expect every Singaporean to believe with me, agree with me, right? But I believe, out of 10 households, more than 5 households will experience sudden death, sudden heart attack out of nowhere, right? Or
Out
sudden
of 10
terminal
households,
cancer.
5 households have
Yeah.
experienced that.
That means they have friends or heard of friends or relatives or even
Wait.
immediate
Where do you
family,
get that data,
right?
Mr. Go?
Well,
Out of
you
10,
can go and
some.
ask around. Yeah, you seriously, Walid, you can go and ask around,
Mr. Go, it cannot be that. It cannot be. I talk to
right?
people also, but people don't say that to me. So
Because you know why? I also got people with vaccine injury. They do not dare to talk about it.
so it cannot be that when I'm quoting data, like
Yeah.
with actual data, and then you say, oh, you've talked to some
Okay,
people, then
if
how do we
okay,
find a
I tell you what.
common ground
When I
of
get into
facts?
parliament, into parliament, very simple. I'm going to set up a survey force. I'm going to go and do a survey and ask people, right? Because it cannot run away, Walid. 25% excess death. What
So
does
the
it mean?
excess death, it could be due to a lot of things. Could be due to COVID also, right?
No, the COVID, the death actually quite minimal right now,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But the excess death is still very abnormally high. How do you
20.
actually consult that?
Okay,
That is the plain data. And
25%. I
I'm not,
believe there was a parliamentary question in 2022 on this, right?
uh,
26 excess deaths per 100,000 people. That's not a lot.
you see, Walid, when we talk about statistics, we cannot just look at the figures like that. We must know the context of the data. In Singapore context, we actually, our population changed so much every year. We increase our population by injecting foreigners coming in. If you use the excess death by proportion, it's not going to be accurate.
No. This is not proportion. This is 26 deaths per 100,000
Correct, per
people.
100, but per 100 must be based on the population,
Per
total population.
100,000. Yeah, so you just multiply by
Walid,
50 and then you get
every
the...
year we have an increment of 20,000, 30,000 people by foreigners. How can the comparison be accurate?
I don't understand how that affects the data, to be
Because
honest.
your base increase
Yeah, but if it's per
artificially.
100,000 people, you just multiply it and you'll get the same anyway.
Because the population increased artificially.
I understand that, but that wouldn't affect the... Okay, but anyway, I've made that point. So you think
Okay.
that your vaccine position will get people to vote for you?
No, it is not my vaccine position. It's about governance.
Okay. So
Right?
you are okay with losing votes and people not maybe taking your party as seriously as you want to because of your vaccine position?
If people think that life and death issue is not serious enough, then I got nothing to say.
No, but that's a false
No,
representation, right?
to us,
Because
it's very real.
everybody
To
thinks
us,
life
very
and
real.
death matters,
Huh?
but how they interpret the data,
Okay, I
where
tell
they
you what,
get the data is very different from you, right?
very simple, Walid. Florida have already come out with a law that says that they are going to ban the mRNA vaccine mandate. That means the school cannot impose the mandate on anyone else or
I am
any.
not sure whether we should be using Florida as
Anyway,
our...
this is only the first thing. What if?
I'm
What
not sure
if?
whether Ron DeSantis should be
No.
our measure of good
Wait.
governance.
Walid. What if the America overturned and says that mRNA vaccine should not be mandated?
Yeah, again, so
You
what
know,
Donald Trump says, right, is very different from what the scientists and the overwhelming majority of scientists say.
no, it is not, Walid. If you really read enough, because you are on the other side, you are not in touch with a lot of development that's going on, right?
What other side? I am not part of the government. I'm
No,
not.
no, 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 no. I mean, the vaccine skeptic and the pro-vaccine. You see, so you are on the other side. So
Yeah, indeed. I
yeah,
am. I
yeah.
am on the other
So
side.
there's a selection bias. I read both.
Perhaps, but that could be the case for you as well,
Yeah.
right?
No,
That
I
could be
read
the...
both.
Yeah.
I actually read both sides. I understand that mRNA is termed to be the potential savior because of certain concept it has. But I
Okay.
also understand, right? In Modena, in 2016, is financial reports. Is actually in the financial reports. It says it failed to produce, right, the genetic uh, uh, medical injection using mRNA system because of the toxic toxicity of the so-called the lipid nanoparticles, the nanoparticles that carries the message. Right? It is very technical, right? Because it says that if it's too few, it doesn't work. If too much, it actually
So
become too toxic.
okay.
So that is the reason why mRNA did not uh, take take off, even though when the concept was first found
Okay,
30
so
years
I
ago,
I think
right?
I don't want to get into the technicalities, but
Right?
I
Yes,
think I just wanted to end this particular section on
yes,
vaccines on this. I
yes.
think that what you are saying, what you're asking people to believe is to what you're asking people to is to disbelieve in the entire scientific consensus. That's a
No, Walid,
global
Walid, Walid.
conspiracy.
I have to
Yeah,
correct you here.
please,
I
please,
didn't say that.
please, please. Yeah,
I didn't say that. Please,
yeah.
I'm pro safe vax. Right?
No,
I
I'm
only
talking about
believe.
COVID. I'm talking about the COVID vax. You are
No.
asking
I am only
voters.
saying. I actually don't discourage people go and take vaccine, you know, because you do not understand my stand. I say
I think I don't. Yeah.
it must be an informed consent. It should
Okay.
not be forced, and that is something to do with governance. You must respect the rights of the people to decide whether to take it or not.
Okay, so
And
you just so
you must
your
give
point is you think the vaccines are safe, is just that they must have they must
no.
decide whether they want to.
In fact, at any point of time back then, to 2021, right? In fact, in 2020, I was hoping to have a vaccine effective so that we can solve the pandemic.
Wait.
I've
So no,
never
no.
changed that.
So no. Let me be very specific, right?
Yeah.
So you are okay with the COVID-19 vaccines,
No,
but you
no,
don't want it to be compulsory.
no. To me, it must be safe and effective.
Okay,
That
so
is
let's talk about the vaccines that we have, not about future hypothetical.
okay. In
So
the future, when a new virus came, you come up with one vaccine, right? You must show me it's safe and effective,
okay,
right? In fact, as I have told you, when the vaccine rolled out, right, I have skepticism. I'm very skeptical. I follow all the data of infection. Majority of those infected are all those vaccinated. And the conclusion is very simple. There's only one way. The vaccine didn't work.
that is not true. I think that is palpably not true. But okay, so Mr. Go, I think this may be
I,
the first episode
I okay.
I get a
I,
POFMA
I,
for
I, no,
after 106
no.
episodes.
You will not get POFMA. You know why? Because even MOH agrees we are not going to have herd immunity. Why? Because it doesn't prevent infection or transmission.
Yeah,
We
but
were
the effects are reduced. I think they have never pretended, right? So okay, so Mr. Go,
okay.
I think we have reached different conclusions probably, right? So
Okay. Yeah.
let's disagree on that. But
Yeah.
I think that that position itself will not get you anywhere near parliament.
Well, so be it. Because I believe in giving people the right to choose what to do to their body. It's
Okay,
not about whether I believe in this vaccine or not. You must respect the human rights.
right. Okay,
It's about
fair enough.
governance.
Fair enough. So I want to move on. I have actually three
Yeah.
other topics. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
What's your party stand on Palestine?
My party stand on Palestine.
Yeah.
We believe in the two-state situation. We believe that any effort to help the refugees in Gaza, right, should not be deterred. Right? That's what we believe. Who is right, who is wrong, is actually a long story. Right? But the fundamental of it is this. It's about governance again, about fairness. The British agrees to carve out one part of the Palestinian land for the Jews to stay. Correct? That was 1949, if I'm not wrong. Right? And in fact, the
1948.
Zionists used terrorist method to achieve that. If you really study the history, but that is actually past. We have a 6 days war, it's actually past. So what we will look forward is a peaceful resolution, right? A coexistence for Palestinian people as well as the Israelis. Right? So to me is you say Hamas is terrorist. I don't think so. If somebody comes to my house and draw a line, I say this belongs to him. Do I fight back? Of course I will fight back. Will you fight back? And because of I fighting back, you say I'm actually a terrorist? It doesn't make sense to me. Right? It doesn't make
I think
sense
the
to me.
issue is when civilians are attacked. It's
Well,
not about that.
well,
But so you don't
well,
disagree with
okay.
the government
You see,
that much that on the two-state solution. Is there anything major you disagree with the government on Palestine?
we do not only believe in two-state agreement, solution. We must actually recognize the Palestinian government as a state government,
Okay.
and all occupying force should actually withdraw from the place and not doing the land grab. And this is something that PAP have not said anything about,
Okay. So
right?
the recognition of the Palestinian state, that's I guess our point of agreement today.
Yes.
Two other issues. One is immigration, and I've been following your post on,
Mm,
and the other one is LGBT. Of course,
yes.
we'll end with that. I've been following your post on immigration quite a bit, and I
Yeah.
must say I find some of the things that you say a bit peculiar. For instance, you speak pretty well of Nigel Farage in the UK, and then you said Singapore is not a migrant society because you start from 1965. So what is your position on
Okay.
this
First of all,
issues?
all right.
Yeah.
First of all, Nigel Farage is only an example of three-corner fight, multi-corner fight he won.
Okay.
And why did he win? Right? Not that I agree with him, right?
Okay.
Don't. It's actually a political observation. He
All
won
right.
because more and more people agrees with him, right? That they should not continue to get refugees onto their shores, right? Which create a impact on the society. Rightfully, right or wrong, right? That is for the British to decide. Okay.
What do you think? Is it right or wrong? What do you think?
Before I go to that, right?
Yeah.
People always say that we are the migrant
Yeah.
country.
Yeah.
We are not a migrant country. Why I say that? We are a migrant colony, but not a migrant country. You must actually differentiate that. Why? When when the British Empire were colonial masters of this land, right? They will have coolies from China, right, from India, Tamil Nadu, to help them to build this place. That is their strategy because they have no interest in building a national identity whatsoever. Correct? And that's how my forefathers comes to Singapore. But after independence, I'm not sure how old you are. I'm born in 1970. Right? We actually rejected the idea of a massive immigrants from other places. These are by the statistics that I've shown in the data,
Okay.
right? The census. So why? Is LKY wrong to do that? Is Dr. Goh Keng Swee wrong to do that? Rajaratnam wrong to do that? No, they are not. Because they understand, they understood one thing. If you want to form a country, build a country from scratch with a diverse culture, right? You have to start to mold a national identity, a national cultural identity, linguistic identity. But if you start to continue to accept foreigners come and go or become our new citizens, now so-called the naturalized citizens, right? We can never build a nation in any identity or any essence of that. And that is why our PRs are very low. The number of PRs are very low. Most of them are actually stuck in Singapore, right? Due to the separation. So they got the PR. Some are stateless, we are non-residents, right? And we did not have foreign migrant workers because the priorities back then was to create jobs for Singaporeans. Is that so?
We have more than 500,000 PRs in Singapore
No,
now.
no, no. In 1970s, it's not.
Oh,
It's only about
1970.
200,000.
No, okay. So, but
Right?
1970, the issue, I guess the immigration now is because of low birth rates. There wasn't that problem last
Yes,
time.
yes. I'm coming to that.
Right.
So Goh Keng Swee, Hon Sui Sen, LKY make a mistake. They thought that if I want to create jobs for Singaporeans, it's very difficult. So the easier way out is reduce population, right? And that's why the two is enough campaign came about. They went on for 15 years, more than 15 years, I think, about 17 years, from 1970s. Actually, right from the start, 1966, they already have this population board, right? If you read the history, right, they want to control small families, right? But small families not enough. They go to the extreme to say two is enough. They are overwhelmingly successful until that our population drops, our total fertility drops below 2. And that is only in 1980s they start to realize the problem. But even so, in 1980s, Hon Sui Sen, Dr. Goh Keng Swee, and even LKY himself have said we cannot forever depend on migrant workers. There are records about that. You can go and look about it. In fact, even in 1989, Lee Kuan Yew, in his National Day rally speech, he says that we must stop this and all jobs must be done by Singapore citizens. You can look about it, look it up.
Can you say we must stop immigration?
Yes. Right? But only after Goh Chok Tong took over in 1990, there was a turnaround. And he started to say, we welcome foreign talent. It is only then, because the two is enough policy was so successful, it's irreversible. Too successful.
But also, it's very common for developed countries to have their birth rates.
Yes,
this is not unique to Singapore.
Precisely.
Yeah.
But due to the added acceleration of these population control policies, right, we are facing rapid problem. Now, how do you solve the problem? Other countries have 220 million people, even 100 million people, 200 million people. The Americans have 240 million people, right? They can afford to get in immigrants. Even the UK, I think UK is about 60 million people. But we are only back then it's 2.5 million people, citizens. If we are going to increase at this rate of naturalized citizenship, what will happen to us? Nobody have ever thought of that. We will become a marketplace. We will become a hotel and not a nation. So in order to solve this low fertility rate, the easier way out is, of course, using foreign migrants, definitely. But the more difficult way, which is more logical way for me, right, is to grow our core. I'm not anti-migrant, okay? My position is very simple. If a local Singaporeans married a foreign spouse, the spouse should be given priorities to be our new citizens, naturalized citizens. Why? It's easier for this spouse to be integrated into our society because.
So how do we solve this low fertility rate problem?
Then you have to wait for my manifesto lah. We have a whole list of things. That's why.
So because I think it's easy to, and I see a lot of Singaporeans are angry about immigration and so on, and I understand that. But what is the solution to the low fertility rate? It doesn't seem like there is a good solution out other than this.
It has to do first with getting our young couples to marry early, right? You see, during the two is enough campaign, they actually discourage young couples to get married young. Then we have to do the reverse, right? How to encourage a young couple to get married when your BTO HDB flats are so expensive? The root problem is for first-timer young couples below the age of 30, the BTO HDB flats have to be heavily subsidized, or not subsidized, sell at cost. That's why all along in 2011, my campaign is HDB flats must be sold at cost plus, not the market rate, because this is unfair to our future generation. Is that too difficult to understand? Because we empowered the PAP government in 1965, I think 1966, Land Acquisition Act, where the government utilized this power to acquire 80% of the land at the cheap price. Granted, but you must not monetize this land. You must think ahead for the survival of the country. And one of the survival criteria is your people must get married and procreate. Does it make sense to you?
Yeah, definitely. I think the reduction of HDB prices, I do think that is definitely something.
But only for young couples, the first time buyers, not those who want to upgrade and all that. They should not enjoy that.
Right.
Yeah, so we must be very specific. I'm already telling you part of my manifesto.
Okay.
Right, or this. Right. So if we are not going to try to do all this, only taking the shortcut, right, we will become irrelevant as a nation.
What do you mean? Why do migrants make us irrelevant as a nation?
I tell you, the two major sources of migrants to become a naturalized citizens are from where?
India and China.
India and China, and plus Malaysia.
Malaysia as well, yeah.
Yes. Right. What if we know India and China have a history of a conflict, geopolitical conflict, right? Border conflict. What if they fought again? They fight again. And you know, even for my father, when being the Singapore citizen for so long, he still think of the motherland, China. It is just human nature. The naturalized citizen will think of a motherland of India.
Migrants? What's the difference with the new migrants then? So why single out new migrants if
new migrants
older Singaporeans also believe like this?
Because they're more fresh in mind. The attachment, the emotional attachment for us, the second generation. I am a Singapore Chinese. I am not. My motherland is not China, and that's it. Right? But for the new migrant, they are not. They were actually, if they two giant fight, there will be conflict within our society. And this is exactly the question I posted in 2019 in IPS forum.
I was there, I think.
Yeah.
You posted this to DPM Heng, didn't you?
Yeah.
I was there.
Yeah. This is a real issue. So we cannot depend on this. And when the natural citizenship becomes more and more, I think it's about 20% to 30% right now, right? And when it comes to voting,
that problem solves itself in one generation. Their
children. Within one generation, it's going to be very difficult, because when this population becomes 30%, 40%, or even 50% of the citizenship.
No, but you say you are a second generation and you already feel Singapore is your home, not a motherland. So likewise for their children as well, right?
Yes and no. Right? Yes and no. Because I have known some new citizens are naturalized citizens. Their second generation still go back to the motherland to work, holding a Singapore passport. And you know what? The greatest fear I have is these people, because of the technology, right? They are grouped in the chat group with their own kind from the motherland of China or motherland of India. Do you know that? They talk among themselves. We have an EIP. But EIP is irrelevant here because they don't mix around with the locals, even in chat group. What are the dangers? We must be realistic about this, very pragmatic about this. This cannot go on. It will break our nation. If the
I don't know about that, but I definitely see what you're saying. There will be issues, and I think immigration will be one
So-
of the major issues of this
Yeah.
election.
So for me, I'm not anti-migrants, right? My wife is not born in Singapore, put it that way, right? But I try to naturalize her, right, with some degree of success, right? But I cannot
So
say for everyone
if you
else.
can be successful, I'm sure other people can be successful
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. So my concept is very simple. If a local Singaporeans married a foreign spouse, it's okay. We can accept them in because it's easier for the spouse to be integrated into our society, our mindset, our Singlish. Someone say, what's our national language? It's actually Singlish, correct?
Our
Right?
national language is Malay, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, national Malay lah, but for all of us, we all speak
Yes.
English, you know. When
Yes.
we are overseas, you hear someone who speaks English, you are so happy because for Singaporeans, for Singapore, right? So it's easy for integration as a spouse, but not the whole family that comes out, right? As a whole family, it is very difficult, Walid. Especially these people are well-to-do. They live in bungalows. They live in their own community, HDB, not even HDB, condos. How are they going to integrate? They don't even go to hawker centers to eat, you know. Some of them.
Who are these people you're talking about?
Because we only give citizenship to those who are high flyers, right? So they earn quite a lot of money, rightfully so. So they don't live in HDB, some of them.
Okay.
Right? Now, back to this. In terms of migrants issue, population issue, we have to protect our jobs, just as LKY, right?
Okay.
Lee Kuan Yew,
Fair
Goh
enough.
Keng Swee, they protected our jobs. They actually trained us, right?
So just one small question on one more question on migration before we move on to the
Yeah,
final one. LGBT. So sorry, it's gone on longer than I
yeah,
expected.
it's okay. It's okay.
So you can see why what you said, even though you don't mean it, you can see why it could lead to racism against Indians, for instance, especially who have been at the receiving end of a lot of unsavory comments in the past few years since the debate on Sika, right? Can you at least empathize with people who say, hey, you know, your rhetoric can potentially be dangerous?
I have, in my business, I have Indian clients. I'm very friendly with them, right? But some of the Singaporeans, they are just too emotional about it because they lost their job, but they are seeing a lot of displacement. You see, in our society, it's the fact that the Chinese are the majority, right? So when the Chinese from mainland China comes in, if they don't speak, they don't talk. You do not. Sometimes you don't even know whether they are Singapore Chinese or mainland Chinese. Correct. So, but in the workplace, when you have an Indian who comes in huge numbers, right? Then they start to have this thinking. I'm not justifying why they think that way, but I'm just by observation. This is a psychological impact of visuals. I do not think it is correct, right? Not at all. We should not feel that way. But having said that, coming to this point, because of this CCAR, it's actually a free trade agreement. In economics, we learn about free trade agreement. Actually, it comprises of three things, right? One is free flow of goods and services. Second is free flow of capital funds, investment. The third thing is more touchy. Free flow, okay, free mobilization of labor, right, to achieve what we call the free trade and the efficiency in world economy. Right? These are the three things. Most countries sign the first two, but not the third one. Why? Because they protect their own citizens' job. Right? And I put it to you very simple. We are only 3.7 million, including all the naturalized citizens. India have 1.4 billion, 1.3 billion right now. China have 1.4 billion. Right? We did not sign the Chapter 9, similar Chapter 9 deal with China, but we signed something with India, right? That allows them to have over 100 profession to come to our place to work. PMET. Now
Yeah,
imagine.
but they still have to apply through the normal process.
Yes.
It's not an unfettered thing.
Yes.
Right?
It's okay. Right? But imagine this. 3 million people, or our workforce, our local workforce, about 2 million, trying to compete with 1.3 billion. If we are competing with the top 1% of the Indian, that would be 13 million people. And are you sure that all Singaporeans are the top brains in the world?
But we are not bringing in 13 million people, right?
Of course, I'm talking about competition. It basically means that for every Singaporeans that we have here, the workers, you can always find someone who is better, cheaper, right? From India.
But I think the crucial point is they still have to apply. They do not get a free pass. It
Yes.
seems like what you're suggesting is, they can just come in. That's not true. They cannot just come in.
Yeah, of course. But what are we witnessing now, Walid?
So, but the government still controls it, right? The government still
They
gets to
say the
control.
government is controlling. But what is the reality on the ground? The reality on the ground is, if Singaporeans are employed by companies, MNCs especially, they are only treated as a necessary quota number to employ someone from India or China. Right? That's number one. Number two, in terms of job opportunities, will they have the job opportunities to climb the corporate ladder? Some may, some really top one may, but majority of them will not.
No, but that's the situation you're saying still assumes that there are so many Indians who can just come in. They can only come in once they get.
It's not just about the numbers.
Yeah.
It's just about we have to give opportunities to our locals.
Fair enough. I agree with that. I agree.
To progress in their jobs, because nobody is born.
No, I agree with that. I think immigration can become an easy solution, and it doesn't. It's a quick fix.
Yes.
And so I agree with that. But Mr. Go, I'm wondering, is part of your issue also, because just now you said you have Indian clients and so on, and I'm looking at your CEC. There's no Indian person, right, on your CEC?
You will have.
Oh, you will have. So
Yes.
now not yet.
Yeah, we are going to call, right?
Okay. So
Yes.
don't you think that's a problem? To function in multiracial Singapore, there's one Malay, right?
I totally agree. There will be Malay and there will be Indian.
So at the moment, there's only one Malay and no Indians.
Actually, there are few in Malay, right? But unfortunately, Safarin and Nazrin.
Right? Okay, the website doesn't say.
Nazrin is in Australia right now.
Nazrin Azhar, is it?
Yeah, Nazrin Azhar Saman. Yes.
Okay.
Right.
It's on my Facebook. All right.
Yeah,
but surely you can see that this is, for me, like, if you only have one Malay, one Indian, then it's a bit problematic.
No. Because it's unfortunate that my party was formed with a very complicated situation in NSP. Right? I didn't want to form this party, but something happened in NSP in 2015. Right?
Okay.
Very
Right.
unfortunate that we ended up as it is right now. So we have to move on.
All right. Okay. So
Yeah. So,
let's move on to today
yeah.
and Nisun. And you mentioned something about the LGBT issue. And I want to ask very specific question.
Yes.
Because you mentioned that any rational person should agree about the birth rate, right? You mentioned any rational person. And so my question to you is, even if gay marriage is not legal, that has nothing to do with the birth rates, right? Because gays
Okay.
or lesbians won't suddenly have children whether gay marriage is legal or not. So it has no bearing on the birth rate. So what did you mean when you talked about LGBT?
We read
Yeah.
you cannot just take it out of context.
Okay, sure. Can you explain maybe
The,
the
the the
context to
whole
me? Yeah,
thing
yeah.
actually for repeal of 3770. Frankly speaking, I'm indifferent because this is something between two consenting adults, right, doing things that in their privacy, right. But there are some of my party colleagues have concern because it's not just about the repeal of 3778. It's what happened next. Right? They are more worried about the push for LGBT agenda. What is the agenda? They are, if you follow what Black Box and what the left in the Democrats in US is doing, is to push for a normalization, right, of the gay lifestyle as a lifestyle choice. What does it actually mean? It means that in a in our previous society context, right? Although we acknowledge there will be gays, because statistically speaking, there will always be gays in the society, right? But we do not encourage people to choose it as a lifestyle. In fact, at some instance, people were trying to convince the gays to get married, to be normal, traditional, right?
So whether you encourage or not, they exist, right? So
Yeah,
my
they
question is,
exist.
how
But
does it affect the birth rate?
but
So that has no bearing on the birth rate
no.
whatsoever.
When people start to think that LGBT is a lifestyle that you choose, it will affect.
So you are saying if we allow it, then suddenly more people will become gay or
It's
lesbian.
not being allowed. It's not about being allowed. If you actually endorse in a national level to say that same-sex marriage is okay, right? Then you send a very, very straight, direct signals to all our people, all right, that it's okay to choose to be a gay, right?
I guess my
So,
question is still this, right? So if that signal is not sent, do you think that gay people would have children? They would be
of
in
course not.
straight
Of course
marriages?
not. Of course not.
Yeah, exactly.
What?
So it has no bearing at all on birth rates, right?
No. What I'm saying that we should not be distracted. If you read my statement,
Yeah.
very clear. We should not be distracted about this LGBT agenda. And we should focus on growing our core. Correct?
What do you mean by being distracted? I don't understand.
Because people are going to say, oh, whether we respect gay, whether we should have a gay sex education for our children and all that.
Okay. So what would be a policy difference that you are, because you mentioned that this is a reason, right? This is one of those
Okay,
important. What would be a
what
different
okay.
policy that you would have?
What PAP did was this: they repealed the 3778, right? But they did not follow through. They did not follow through to amend the constitution to state it very clearly for the nation values, the core values of nation, survivability of the nation, sustainability of the nation, right? Legally speaking, a family unit should be consist of a biologically male and a female. It's just that. Why did they not want to do that? Instead of saying that It depends on the parliament. And Lawrence Wong come to say that as long as in power, right, same-sex marriage will not happen. What happened here? He lost. Yeah.
He did say that. Yep.
Yeah, he did say that. How can it be depend on who comes into power?
So can I ask, are you against the PAP fielding LGBT activists or LGBT individuals?
Well, I have fielded LGBT candidates before.
Okay, so you're not against that.
I'm not against that, but my baseline to my candidates is very simple: no gay agenda, no LGBT agenda. You come in.
Meaning what? Meaning what? So they cannot talk about LGBT issues, or?
Yeah, you cannot push for same-sex marriage, right? But you can talk about cost of living. You can talk about housing, even for singles. I'm okay.
What about they say no, okay, they won't push for gay marriage, but they want gays and lesbians to be treated like other people.
In what sense? For example, do you give teach porn to your children under 16?
Wait, what has this got to? I feel where the connection is going to be made. What do you mean? What has that got to do with this conversation?
Okay, for example, the gay agenda is, we must teach our children their other sexuality. Talk about gay sex. But my question is, do you teach porn, give porns to your children? You don't.
I don't know. I find that is a very strange that is a very strange comparison to make.
Okay,
but
because nowadays, Walid, nowadays,
Mr. Go, you can see why LGBT people would find what you just said extremely offensive, right?
No, yeah.
You are comparing LGBT individuals wanting.
No, because for the conservative, they come to me and say, they're teaching this to our children, our gay sex, our gay relationship.
I understand if conservatives are apprehensive, about things, and they are. And for conservatives, maybe they would say, okay, I believe marriage. I myself believe marriage is between a man and a woman. I believe that, right? But at the same time, if Singapore is a secular state, right, then surely you cannot prevent this, right? If you are talking about
correct,
this. And I also think that even for me, somebody who believes that religiously, I do think that it is pretty offensive to compare that to teaching children about pornography, right? Don't you think? I mean, don't you see the problem there? I think you can. I guess even if you disagree with it, you don't have to be, I guess, distasteful about it, right?
No, you see, the world have changed so much that subtly, even the Disney movies are teaching about gay relationship to our children.
I find that a lot of the conversation, right? You reference a lot of US right-wing stuff. A lot of the culture wars. It seems like you are quite in tune with the culture wars of US, and it seems that you may be bringing them here even when there may be none, right?
I think,
and also just the point on the constitution. The constitution was changed, right? I mean, I get what you're saying. You're saying not directly, but it was indirectly.
Yeah.
It was indirectly.
So Walid, don't mistake me. I'm not aligned with the ultra right movement in whether it's in US or UK. Right? If you read carefully what I've said, is pro-family, because as a small nation, I've always emphasized we are not like UK and US where we're large population that can have some variation, can make some mistakes. But when it comes to a population policies, we cannot make such mistakes. I believe if Lee Kuan Yew is around, he will agree with me. Right? We cannot make a certain mistakes that change the cultural mindset, that undermine our long-term survivability as a nation.
Actually, in one of his final books, Lee Kuan Yew said it's a matter of time before Singapore accepts it, right? In the future, he said Singapore.
Yeah, it's a matter of time, but He didn't say he agrees to it. Right? He understood there are actually people pushing it and all that.
Okay, so
Right?
I just want to get your stand and your party stand
Well,
is that
okay,
yeah,
you just now you point out something very important. Right?
yeah,
We are a secular state. Right?
yeah,
So my narrative is never from a religious point of view.
yeah,
Right? In fact, as a Buddhist myself, right, Buddhist is quite tolerant, even
yeah.
that we are our precepts that says that we should not have a sexual relationship outside of a marriage, which is a man and a woman. Right? But even if you do that, we don't judge you. Right? It's just for our own training of mindfulness. Right? But when it comes to a national level policies, right, I cannot just take on my perspective, my own religion belief, or even be influenced by the Muslim or the Christians. No. I look at the issue in a very clear way. What is a sustainability and what type of cultural mindset? Mindset and core values are very important for survival. Any companies, when you go to the companies, they have a set of culture. That's what they depend on to grow, correct? To sustain. Same for a country. You must have a very strong cultural mindset for a small country, especially a small
What
country.
is that? What is that change? And you use the word sustainability, survivability, but what is
We
it
have to
that?
be pro-family to grow our core, whether it's immigration issue or whether it's LGBT.
But my point is, gay marriage or LGBT individuals, they have no bearing. Whatever the law is, it has no bearing on the birth
No,
rates or on the core that
there
you're
are
talking about.
there are people who actually are bisexual. Put it that way, right? So if you say gay marriage is okay, right, they will just throw away their family, right? Then go for gay marriage.
I don't think
Right?
that happens. Mr. Go,
Well,
I don't
no, no. You may
I
not
don't
think that
think
it will happen, Walid.
I don't think that happens, and even if it does, it's such a small number that it doesn't
Yeah,
affect anything.
yes. But as a nation, as a core values, you have to be very set in a very clear direction. We want survivability, sustainability, and family unit is a pillar of a nation, especially for a small nation. Can
Okay.
anyone disagree with that?
No, so I think we agree on some things, right? We agree that the fertility rate needs to increase. We agree that immigration needs to be calibrated. Maybe where we disagree is, I think you are more maybe hardline on immigration than I am, and maybe on LGBT issues. I think there's a lot of disagreements there. I think
Yeah,
there's a lot of
because
disagreements there. So, do you think,
immigration,
Mr. Good, electorally, do
mm,
you think that this policy will sell to young people? Because I think whatever you just said, this is a losing issue.
you may be right. You may be right, but I'm not a populist. If the young thinking is not aligned to the national interest, then I have to get a platform and tell them, look, these are the serious issue.
But you're not going to be elected if you don't win the popular votes,
Well,
right? You don't win people.
I may not win, correct, but it must be said in records that there are certain things that must be put into consideration for this nation. I'm not, well, people are going for the pink votes because the statistics says, right? More people are more liberal and all that. But does it actually means that it's good for the country? So the fundamental question you have to ask yourself, right? Whatever the popular thinking, does it benefit the country in the long run?
Okay. So
Right?
can I safely say, from our discussion on vax and on immigration, that you are not contesting to win, essentially. You're
No,
contesting
no,
to
no.
put
It's
issues
not. It's
on
not
the...
true. I believe they are the silent majority, right? Are more rational.
Okay, Mr. Go,
Although,
Mr.
yeah,
Go, I'm not a betting person, but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
how about we have a friendly wager? If you do not win, you come back on my show and then you say that you were wrong. How about that?
No, it's not about win or lose, Walid. Win or lose doesn't determine whether you are right or wrong, right? It's about values. I cannot say my values are wrong,
No, 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 no. It's not
right?
that your values are wrong. That you were wrong. That the silent majority agrees with you.
Oh, okay. That I will say that I will be very disappointed if the silent
Right.
majority actually think otherwise, right? And I would say that the silent majority uh, could have shifted. And frankly speaking, Walid, if I cannot get this defense of the governance of the vaccine mandate, it's not vaccine, no, it's not nothing to do with anti-vaccine, but it's the governance, the rule, right, to be challenged, right? Then personally, right, I have to run road because I do not want to trap in the country where people force a jab on me or I go to jail, right?
So, Mr. Go, shall we have that wager?
Yeah, I'll come back to your show, definitely, definitely.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Mr. Go,
It's not an
where are you
easy show for
contest?
me, It's not an
Where
easy
are you
process,
personally contesting?
huh?
Where
In
are you
Tampines,
contesting?
when I know that there's potential 3 corner fight, 4 corner fight, I don't send any other people there. I will lead the charge.
So
Okay.
if Tampines, so you are going to you are going to come to Tampines, run in
Yes,
Tampines.
yes. Because I'm not the one who will tell people go in for 3 corner fight and then I go a safe place to fight. No, that's
Right.
not my leadership style.
So if let's say you contest in Tampines and WP contests in Tampines, do you think you hurt the opposition or do you think that's democracy?
That will be another test of a democracy. How mature our democracy is all about. It's about values. It's about core values. It's about policies, right? More than just a branding. And I believe in 2011, even with a very weak branding of an NSP, right, we have a swing. And I believe the the majority of the voters in Tampines, they will actually do consider my proposition of values, the core values for the country, for sustainability and survivability, right?
Okay.
Right.
Mr. Go, any last words? I'll let you have the final word.
We love the country. I believe you too, right? Sometimes we differ in our values or even our thoughts, right? But at the end of the day, right, it's not about having 3 corner fights, right? It's about a contest of values, core values, and the contest of policies. So whoever comes into 3 corner fight or 4 corner fight, let the people choose what they believe in their core values, not just the party or not just Goh Meng Seng, right? I don't believe in that. Right? As much as I could, most of my candidates have the same core values, and I actually appreciate that because I rebuilt my party from 2020, from 3-man party, a 4-man party, right, to the quite substantial size right now,
How many do you have now, members?
about 30. Right, that's a tenfold increase. So it means that people who
That's
share my
still a
values,
very small
yeah,
number.
it's very small. I don't overbloat boast about how many 200, 300 I have. We are very small, but we are very mindful of what our core values is. Right? What we believe in governance, good governance, what we believe in population policies. As a small country, we have a constraint in terms of size and population. We cannot have 10 million people by 2065. Right? There's no way. Right? We cannot forever stay put and take the easier way out. It will actually cause a lot of issues later on. So people may not see what I see as a problem in future, but when it comes, it will be too late. Right? That's all. Thank you, Walid.
Thank you, Mr. Goh.
All right.
It has been interesting for sure. This is the longest episode I've ever had.
I enjoy it. All right.
I appreciate.
Yeah, yeah.
Likewise. Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.